So today we're going to start by just talking about how your biological sex is determined. So all of your normal body cells have all 46 chromosomes, right? Your diploid cells, meaning you have 23 pairs of chromosomes in your body. Does that sound familiar? We've talked about like 23andMe, 23 pairs. So one of those pairs of chromosomes have your sex chromosomes, or the chromosomes that are going to determine your biological sex. So typically, XX is going to represent female, and XY is going to represent male. So make sure you have those 2 bullet points. You don't need every single word on the slide, but know XX is female, XY is male. And then the one last thing I want you to have is just this vocab word of autosome. So in your cells, you have those 23 pairs of chromosomes. 1 pair are your sex chromosomes. The other 22 are called autosomes. So have that word in just this. All right, so before we move on, I want to just talk a little bit more about biological sex. You don't have to write this slide down. But I just want to point out that in high school biology, we teach genetics like super simple, okay? We keep it like pretty black and white. However, genetics is super messy in the real world. So in order to be like really knowledgeable in genetics, someone would get their 4-year bachelor's degree in biology, and then they would continue graduate school and either get like a master's or a PhD in genetics. Okay, so it takes a lot of knowledge to understand genetics. So just know, in high school, we teach it super simple. So when we do talk about biological sex, we keep it as like XY is female, XX is male. However, it's important to note that it's not that black and white in the real world, okay? And so here's some examples of exceptions. And so these are going to be something called non-disjunction, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on Monday. But so here you have just like 1 sperm. It has an X, 1 egg, an X, so you get like a normal XX female. Here you have a Y and an X, you get a normal XY male. However, it doesn't always work that way, okay? So sometimes in meiosis, your cells don't properly divide. It's possible to end up with like an XY and an X, and you end up with XXY. It's possible to get like 2 Ys and an X and end up with XYY, okay? So totally possible. So I want to make sure that you know, like, every single human on this planet, not every person is just simple as XX or XY, okay? I think that's worth noting. Also, for people out there with the Y chromosome, you have something called the SRY gene. And so this turns on, and this is basically what causes males to develop, like, male, like, features, and it would, like, block your body from developing female features. Do you think that gene works perfectly for every single human out there? Okay, it absolutely doesn't. And so the moral of this is just we're keeping it super simple in high school bio. XY is male, XX female. But is it really like that in the real world? Okay, it's more complicated. And the ultimate moral of the story is to be compassionate and nice to humans because you don't really know what their full genetics are. So when we talk about XY chromosomes, they do have some differences. So the X chromosome is physically larger than the Y chromosome. So here's a picture of the chromosome. So here's the X, here's the Y. You can tell that there's like a huge size difference, yes? And since both males and females have X chromosomes, you get a variety of genes needed for both males and females on that X chromosome. However, only males have the Y chromosome, so the only genes on Y chromosomes are just for like male characteristics. All right, so since females have 2 X chromosomes and males only get 1 X chromosome, you only really need 1 of your X chromosomes to get those genes. So in females, 1 of the X chromosomes stops working. So we call that dosage compensation. So make sure you know that word. You might also hear it as X inactivation, which is exactly how it sounds. 1 of your X chromosomes, those genes are inactivated. And whichever X stops working, it's completely random. So I'm a female, so I'm XX. So I get 1 X from my biological father, one from my biological mother, right? So one of those X chromosomes is inactivated, but do I know which one? I don't know. There's like no way to say shut off the one from my dad or shut off the one from my mom. Okay, so it's completely random, and they can alter over time as well. All right, here's a fun little example of the chromosome X inactivation. You don't have to write this down. Just take a look up here. Any cat fans in here? Any cat ones? Good. Calico cats. They have this very identifying fur coat pattern, yes? And so the way that fur coat develops is due to the inactivation of different X chromosomes in their bodies. So if you look here, like their black region, so the reason why this part of their body is black is the X that has the orange allele is inactivated. Okay, so on these cells, they're going to grow the black hair. But maybe I don't know if it might be kind of hard to see here, but here you have the orange fur. So on this region, the X chromosome with the allele for black fur is inactivated. Okay. So that's why calicos have their unique fur coat pattern. And then finally today we're going to talk about sex-linked traits. So these are traits that you get from your genes, and they are going to be located on the X chromosome. Okay, so highlight, star, underline X chromosome, meaning the Y, if you're a male, it just kind of exists. We're focusing on the X chromosome. And since males only have one X chromosome, they're going to be affected by recessive X-linked traits way more often than females. And we're going to go over some examples. I'll show you why males are going to be affected more than females. So on this slide, you need to have these first two bullet points. You don't need to write the examples because I'll give you some examples. So then on the next few slides, we're going to go over baldness, which technically isn't a sex-linked trait, but it affects males and females differently. In males, it's dominant and it's recessive in women. Therefore, it's going to behave like a sex-linked trait, so we throw it in there. We're also going to talk about red-green color blindness, and then we'll also talk about hemophilia. So you don't need to write the examples on this slide. We'll get them on the next few slides. Just make sure you know sex-linked traits are located on the X chromosome only, and since males only have one X chromosome, whereas females have two, males are going to be affected more often than females. Okay, here's just an example that's already done for you, but write it down. Okay, I want you to write it down. So we're going to look at red-green color blindness, meaning you can't see those colors. So X to the B, superscript. So you're going to get the X's and Y's are still just showing if it's going to be a male or female. Okay. And then now if you have a capital B as your superscript, it's going to be normal vision. Okay, so not colorblind. So write this key down because we're going to use it again. X to the lowercase b is going to mean that you do have the gene for the red-green color blindness. And then these traits, they're only on X chromosomes, so Y is just the normal Y chromosome. Nothing special about the Y chromosome. All right, so then we have this example where we have the male. Remember, the male always goes on the top of the Punnett square. So the male is XY. Okay, so remember, that's how we show a male. And then the male is a capital B. So does capital B mean that he has normal vision or he's colorblind? Normal. Okay, normal. So a normal seeing male is what we have on the top line here. Then on the vertical, this is where the female goes. The female is XX, so that's why you have an X in each spot. And then she is heterozygous. So she has a capital B for normal vision, and then she has the lowercase b for the red-green color blindness. These are just like any other traits we've looked at. So because she has one capital B, that's dominant. So what do you think this woman's vision is? Normal or colorblind? Okay, she's normal. Because she has the one capital B, she's normal. Now, she carries that recessive trait. So could she pass this down to her offspring? Yeah, let's find out. So then when you cross these two parents, You're going to combine both the x's and the b's in this case. So you have x to the capital B, x to the capital B. So that is a daughter, right? Two x's would make a daughter. And then the capital B's tell you what about her vision? Normal. Okay, so they would make a daughter with normal vision. On this square, I'm going to combine x to the capital B and y. Okay, if it's xy, that would mean they have a son. And what does the capital B mean? Okay, normal vision. Down here we have XX, so a daughter. Capital B, lowercase b. Because there's at least that one capital B, what's her vision going to be? Okay, normal. And then finally we have XY, which would be a son, and there's only one lowercase b, which means what's his vision going to be? Colorblind. Okay. So the reason why males are affected more frequently than females is, do you see for the male here, he only needs one lowercase b to cause him to be colorblind? Whereas in the female here, she has to have both. So that's why males carry these traits way more often than females. Okay, let's do another practice problem. This time we're just going to get used to writing genotypes. We'll use the same codes as we used on the previous problem. So this time, let's write the genotype of a woman who is not colorblind. So if she's a woman or a female, what are her two main letters going to be? Okay, she's going to be XX. And what superscript represents normal? Okay, so she's going to be X to the capital B and X to the capital B. So if you aren't writing this down, write it down. I want you to practice writing the superscripts. Next, we're going to write the genotype of a woman who is colorblind. So it's still X's, but this time, what letter do you need to show colorblindness? Okay, in order for a woman to be colorblind, you have to have both of them with the lowercase b's. Now let's write a genotype of a woman who's a carrier or heterozygous for colorblindness. Okay, so she's going to be X capital B, then X lowercase b. All right, now let's write the genotype of a man who is colorblind.
X lowercase b.
Okay, so X lowercase b, capital Y. The Y gets nothing because the colorblindness gene is only on the X chromosome. Okay. And then finally, let's write the genotype of a man who's not colorblind. Okay, so we should have X capital B, Y. A colorblind man marries a female who's a carrier for colorblindness. What is the probability that they will have a child who is colorblind? So to solve this problem, we need to draw a Punnett square. All right, and we have a colorblind man. So we know a man is going to be XY. So I'm going to place an X and a Y over each column in the Punnett square. And then if he's colorblind, what superscript does he need on the X? Okay, so he's going to have a lowercase b. And then he marries a female who's a carrier. So females are XX, so one X for each row. And then if she's a carrier, what does that mean as far as her superscripts? Okay, she needs a capital and then a lowercase b. All right, so now I'm just going to combine them. So X, we do try to write the capital first. I'm going to do X capital B, then X lowercase b. Then I have X capital B, Y. On the bottom left, it's X little b, X little b. And then bottom right is X little b, Y. All right, so if we look at this offspring, what's their vision going to be? Normal or colorblind? Okay, normal because there's the capital B. What about this one? Normal because there's a capital B. How about this one? Okay, colorblind because there are 2 lowercase b's. And how about this one? Colorblind. In males, you just need that 1 lowercase b. So what is the probability that their kids will be colorblind? Okay, so there's a 50% chance they would have a colorblind child. One last thing I want to show you is just a pedigree that shows a sex-linked trait. You don't have to write this down. This one's complicated, but just take a look up here. So here's hemophilia. Queen Elizabeth was a carrier, and if you look, she passed hemophilia down, not only to her own children, but they ended up marrying, so it got passed to different royal families. But if you look, do you see a trend of the trait that gets passed down? Who's only getting hemophilia? Good. Are you seeing that the disease is only affecting one sex? Okay. So when you see it's only affecting one sex, then that's an indicator it's a sex-linked trait. So I just wanted to show you one pedigree to show if you're only seeing it affecting like males or females only, then start thinking it must be a sex-linked trait.